Hi, everyone. Congratulations on completing Project 2, your illustration essay on race and identity. We are moving on to Project 3, which will be a rhetorical analysis starting in this week 10. So I want to take a few moments to walk through what that means. And I first want to familiarize you with the notion of the rhetorical triangle if you're not familiar with it. The rhetorical triangle is what you're looking at right now on your screen, and I'll post a image of this on the week 10 folder as well. And whenever we write, especially if we write persuasively, we are employing all three corners of the rhetorical triangle. So you have ethos, pathos, and logos. And each of them stands for something different. And in order to create a well-constructed, convincing piece of writing or advertisement, they usually have components of all three. So ethos is the credibility of you as the writer and the sources that you use. So the more credible that we believe a source is, the more credible we believe the writer is, the more likely we are to trust them. So this goes along with when you're talking about advertising, things like name recognition. If I have good experience with Goodyear tires or Ford vehicles or Coca-Cola, I already know that brand. I know they've been around a long time. I'm more likely to trust them and what they tell me. And it also goes around to sources that they use and are they trustworthy? So that's ethos. Logos is logic and reasoning, and it is the evidence, the facts, the statistics, the quotes that we use. And oftentimes, in your academic writing, you're relying really heavily on logos. You're trying to fill your essays with facts and stats and quotes and information and examples. Advertisements don't always do that. Sometimes they're relying more heavily on pathos, which I'll get to in a second. But we often tend to, as critical consumers, trust people who give us more information, who we feel like we can track down and verify that information. And if they're giving us current and credible facts and stats, we're more likely to trust that as well. And then finally, you have pathos or pathos, which stands for emotion. And when we get into writing, especially academic essays, we want a little bit of that. We want a little humanity in our writing because we want to be able to relate to that. And that's where stories come in, personal examples and anecdotes. But in advertising, oftentimes pathos or pathos is the one that is the most heavily relied upon. It's the use of emotion. So when you think about 30-second to 60-second advertisements that you see on YouTube or television, or even on the radio, they're often relying on inspiring you to feel a certain way, whether that's joy or fear or envy, or even having a good laugh. So when we talk about advertisements, while all advertisers should be touching on all of these points of the triangle, oftentimes there's a lopsidedness to what they present, which is not necessarily ethical, but it is what sells things. So when you are analyzing rhetoric, which is just basically the way we put communication together, you are breaking down these 3 points, and that's what you're going to do in this next essay. So I have the rhetorical analysis essay example sheet or assignment sheet in front of you here. And what you're going to do is pick from one of the print advertisements that we've provided for you. We want you to pick one of these, not going outside of it, not finding your own, just because we're familiar with these. We've done a little bit of our own analysis on them, and that will help streamline everything a little bit, especially when you get into peer reviews and you're reviewing each other's work. So you're going to pick one of the print advertisements that we've provided for you, and you're going to then analyze what works and what doesn't. So when you are analyzing, you're going to probably have a paragraph for each of those 3 points of the rhetorical triangle. So you'll have one paragraph on ethos. Who's the company? Who put the ad together? What was the purpose? Who was the intended audience? Then you're going to look at logos. Is there any evidence provided? Is there any logic or reasoning? And then you're going to look at pathos. What kind of emotions are stirred by the advertisements, with whether it's the choice of words, the images, the colors. Those are all things that you can look at. So in the beginning of the essay, you're going to briefly summarize what you see in the advertisement. So we'll have all been able to view them, but you want to just briefly, in a couple sentences, say what's going on in the advertisement. And then your body paragraphs will be, again, ethos, pathos, logos. You might find that there is not a lot of logos in some of these advertisements, so maybe you spend 2 paragraphs on pathos, 1 paragraph on ethos, and none on logos. But I would ask that you, if you don't feel like there is any logos or ethos, that you say that. And then you're going to think about things like, again, who's the intended audience? What was the purpose of the advertisement? Now, advertisements in and of themselves are meant to sell us products or ideas or concepts, but sometimes they're also building a brand image. They're trying to influence your behavior, possibly to do something good for the benefit of society. So it's not always for you to buy a product, but it could be for you to buy into a concept or a belief. So think about those things as well. And think about why these images were selected. Think about who the company is, if they're trustworthy, if they're credible, if we know of them. And then for each body paragraph, you're going to, again, cover each section of the rhetorical triangle as that applies. You may or may not decide to use sources for this particular essay. It's not a requirement, but if you want to go outside of the advertisement itself and do a little research into the company, like when they were founded, who founded them, how long they've been around, what kind of credibility or reputation they have, or any scandals they've been involved in recently, you might want to do that, and you're certainly able to do that, but it's not required. So here's a quick example of some of the advertisements that we have you looking at. So we give you for this only print advertisements because we want to keep the scope a little bit more targeted. So you have a couple different options. You get to pick the one that you want to focus on. And some of these you will be familiar with and some of these you won't. So pick the advertisement that speaks the most to you and that you think provides the most information that you can analyze. Again, you're looking at logos, logic and reasoning, evidence, facts that help build up the argument. You're looking at ethos, credibility of the source and the company itself. And you're looking at pathos, the use of emotions to make you feel a certain way. And you're able for this to look at things like color, light, font, tagline, information provided, information not provided. And I really enjoy this type of essay, and I hope you will too. I think it does help us become slightly more critical consumers, as far as we are inundated with so many advertisements in our day-to-day lives that we probably don't even realize how many that we are subjected to. And as we begin to break them down and pay more attention to them, we can start to go, what are you doing? Who is that supposed to be effective for? There's been lots of car insurance companies lately that have been putting out advertisements on television that I'm just like, why is that supposed to make me want to buy their insurance? It just seems like a bunch of weirdos doing weird things. So pick an ad that you like from the selected print ads, take a closer look at that rhetorical triangle, and start to think about how you're going to break down and analyze those advertisements. And as always, if you have questions, let Aaron or I know. Thanks.